episode, I want to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart and very much speaks from my own life experience, having struggled with my weight and a lot of different health issues over a large number of years, and having had to work through a lot of self-limiting beliefs about my body, a lot of mistrust that I had for my body, and a lot of thinking patterns that I believe were culturally put upon me that didn't really serve me from a standpoint of being truly healthy. So, what I mean is diet mentality. And today I want to give you 6 of my best tips for walking out of diet mentality. And why I say walking out of diet mentality is that this is not something that is a mental shift that can just happen like that. Walking away from diet mentality is something that takes time, it takes inner work, and it takes us seeing things from a new perspective. So first of all, let's talk about diet mentality. This is something that has come up really recently in my news feed in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and talking about how even having a diet mentality for a lot of us is actually an entitled viewpoint. And if you think about it, there's some truth to that. Those of us that have more resources have more of an opportunity to make different choices with our health. I think along with that, there's also some implied ways that you're supposed to look, especially publicly when you are in health and wellness, or just speaking as a woman, just as a woman, the expectations that we have on us culturally for our bodies, how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to be showing up. It's heavy. It's heavy, heavy stuff. And it starts when we're really little. It starts right away. So it's taken me, I'm 41 years old now, it's taken me this long to feel like I could process through a lot of the things that I was exposed to culturally, then some things that were patterns in my family, then later things that I adopted through diet culture that I thought were good for me that actually weren't. And then also just the fact that nutrition information is constantly changing. So my husband brought up the funny point the other night of like, are eggs good or bad right now? When we were growing up in the 80s, eggs were bad, but now eggs are good. So there's things that are shifting with us all the time. But what does diet mentality look like, first of all? For me, how I would define diet mentality is that you are looking at losing weight or being your ideal weight, quote, as trumping all other concerns as it relates to your health and well-being. Okay. So this is something that I come across a lot working in holistic health. So I have people that come to me that say, hey, what's the essential oil that I can use that's going to help me to lose weight? Or I have people with a nutrition company that I partner with who come to me and their sole focus is just the number on the scale. It's not how they're feeling. It's not their energy level. It's not some of the actual health markers that we could look at. It's only the number on the scale that's driving them. Whenever I encounter that mentality, I recognize it because I used to be there. And I also recognize how destructive it can be and how destructive it can truly become. So the information I'm going to give you today, I am not a licensed counselor. I have no background in dealing with different kinds of mentally addictive behavior when it comes to food, eating disorders, and that type of thing. If that is something that you're dealing with, please take radical self-love and getting yourself some help with that. If you are just the average person in our society who feels like this is something that's just like constantly in your face and that you're constantly having to work through, I think this podcast could be very helpful to you because I'm going to share with you how I have worked through this. So for me, my problems with my weight started when I was young. I struggled with it just to maintain it all through high school, college. And then after I got married, I really started struggling with it. It was like a shift happened in my body. Few years after that, I had half of my thyroid removed. A few years after that, things really got out of control. And for me, the healthier I tried to be, the more weight I would put on. And there's a whole lot of other story that goes along with that. But I just want to share that so that you know that this is something that I have a lot of personal experience and skin in the game with. And what diet mentality looked like for me was some of the following things. So it looked at times like deprivation. There was this idea that I had to eat between 1,200 and 15 calories a day, work out twice a day in order to lose weight or maintain my weight. It was horrible. I was spending so much time at the gym. Can anyone relate to this? I was seeing no results from all of that sacrifice of time. And I had very little quality of life because I was not focusing on fueling my body. I was focusing on depriving it. Along with that came a lot of fear and shame over food. I was afraid if I had the occasional indulgence that I hadn't done all my hard work. And then oftentimes, what do people do after that? They totally throw in the towel and go off the deep end. I was focusing much more about the number on the scale rather than measurable health markers that actually tell us something. Now, when I talk about these health markers, I'm talking about how is my blood pressure? What is the homocysteine level in my body, which is a marker for inflammation? You could even go as far as testing nutrients. Do you have any nutrient or vitamin deficiencies? Do you have any kind of missing thing in your nutrition that is showing up in your body in some way? This can also show up for people as obsession over clothing sizes. And this is something that I just think is kind of crazy because in my closet right now, I have jeans that are anywhere from a size 6 petite to a size 16, and I fit into all of them at the same time. I mean, not at the same time, but like I can wear all of them at this phase of my life. And so I feel like this is a culturally conditioned thing that we get exposed to, that number of our size is so important. Diet mentality can also look like a really unhealthy relationship with exercise, and it can come in two forms. It can come with the sort of over-exercising bent that I'm more prone to taking, or it can also look like totally avoiding exercise because in your mind, exercise has become synonymous with seeking after weight loss, and that is synonymous with deprivation, and that is synonymous with punishment. And so you are not going to exercise because you just can't even live in that mental space. Diet mentality can also look like trying to out-exercise a poor diet. So what that looks like is you don't care about the nutrient content of your food, you're only caring about the calories, and then you're only focusing on exercise as the way to lose or maintain your weight versus a lot of other things that can actually work a lot better. And oftentimes with that is the idea that if you do have a weekend where you kind of overindulge, that you can get to the gym and undo all of that bad behavior, quote unquote, by exercising a whole bunch. And it's just not physically possible for us to do that. It's also not necessary, which is something that I've learned over the years. If our body is working well, if our metabolism is functioning for us, we're not going to have to make up for indulgences. And also, when you come to realize that food is fuel and that there is really no good food or bad food, there's foods that serve us more and there's foods that serve us less, then that can really shift for our mentality as well. Okay, so here are my 6 tips for starting to walk out of diet mentality. The first one I've kind of alluded to already, and that is to get an actual picture of your true health. Notice I'm not saying your weight. Notice I'm not saying your size. Notice I'm not saying your BMI even, or your measurements, your actual health, okay? What is your cardiovascular fitness level? What is your level of strength? How is your endurance? What is your blood pressure? Do you know? Have you asked your doctor to look at your homocysteine level, which is an inflammatory marker in our body? That can tell us a lot. And that information can be sobering or it can be encouraging, but do you see how that's very different? And that it's much more in the realm of self-love versus I am only focused on that number on the scale and whether it's going up and down. The number on the scale is a number that can be a tool. It can tell us some information. For instance, right now, with what I'm doing with my autoimmune paleo protocol, getting on the scale can actually tell me if I'm having a reaction to a food that I'm reintroducing. That's a useful use of the scale. If I'm using the scale as my sole measure of knowing if I'm healthy or not, that's not actually telling me anything. And even if the number on the scale is where I want it to be, there is such a thing as skinny fat, where we are very slim, but we actually don't have a lot of metabolic activity happening through healthy muscles. And we actually have more fat on board than it looks like for that reason. So, shifting our brains into thinking about health over the number on the scale. That's my first tip. Second tip is to walk away from diet mentality, to start walking away from diet mentality, is to start addressing the deeper issues that are behind the weight. Okay. What I mean by that is, back when I was focused on just the number on the scale, I was so miserable with irritability. I mean, like, off the charts irritable. I could not stand to be around my husband. I could not stand to go out socially. Every time the phone would ring, every time I would get an email, it was just like, oh my gosh, somebody wants something else from me. I was not handling stress well at all. Another way this can show up is, are you having troubles with digestion? You know, we're so focused on that number on the scale, but actually, how is our just regular old body functioning? Are you having bloating? Are you having issues that are digestive that need to be addressed? There could be something there that is actually contributing to why you're gaining weight, you're not able to maintain your weight, you're not able to lose your weight. Either way, if we're going to be improving health, we want to improve digestion, we want to improve mood, we want to improve energy. Are you struggling with energy? Are you just depriving yourself of calories, but then sitting around on the couch all the time because you don't have energy to do what you need to do to show up in life? All of these things can point to deeper issues that may be underlying causes of why your body's wanting to hang on to that excess weight. And you can go even deeper than this. So recently, I did some genetic testing because I was continually having problems maintaining my weight, even though I had years, you guys, years of calorie and macro counts, tracking my activity level, doing all of the right things. Like, I shouldn't be at the weight that I'm at with the lifestyle that I live, right? And in doing the genetic testing, I found out that I have a couple of genetic SNPs. Another way to look at it is genetic mutations. One is a methylation SNP called MTHFR that keeps my body from being able to deal with any kind of toxic load or do any kind of its normal processes. I only function at 30% of what the average person does. So that was validating to learn. I also found out that I have a genetic marker that causes like major inflammation really fast when something happens in my body that my body doesn't like. And that can look like my husband having to cut my wedding ring off in the middle of the night because I got exposed to something my body didn't like and I started swelling up like crazy. So get to the root causes of why you're struggling with your weight. And sometimes this is a physical reason why we're struggling with weight. It actually does not have to do with the fact that we're not disciplined enough. It doesn't have to do with the fact that we don't have enough self-control. Yes, those things can be true of us sometimes. And for some of us, that emotional relationship with food is going to be a very prominent reason in why you might be struggling. And that is something that is going to be of benefit for you to address, especially with a professional. But for some of us, there's actual physical reasons why we struggle with weight. And if you don't get to those root causes, you're going to be in this shame spiral for the rest of your life. And also constantly running into the same wall over and over again because you're not actually getting to the root cause of what's going on. Okay. Tip number 3 for starting to walk away from diet mentality. I want us to start realizing that letting go of our obsession of the number on the scale does not mean that you are automatically just going to put on weight like crazy. So this was a fear. This was a self-limiting belief that I held for a long time. And it looked like this. If I don't weigh myself every day and track everything, and if I don't shame myself for whatever that number is, I am going to just lose all control that I have, and I'm going to put on weight like crazy. Does anyone relate to this? And so this has been a big mental shift for me, guys, because over the last 5 years, I've been involved in a community that has really emphasized a lot of radical self-love. And what it has looked like for me is realizing that that discipline that I was holding over myself, that on the surface looked like what I had to do in order to maintain, was actually in my way, because it was causing so much stress. It was causing a rise in my stress hormones. And most of us know that high stress hormones make it really tough to lose or to maintain your weight. Guess what else they do? High stress hormones can make you crazy irritable. When I decided to let go of the fact that I had to have so much control over this in order to be successful, I started to actually be successful. And I started to be successful on a level that was sustainable, that started to feel more in the realm of honoring my body rather than punishing it. So that's tip number 3. Letting go can actually give you more success. Tip number 4 is practicing radical self-love and radical self-acceptance. Okay, so this is like the next layer of what I just said in step 3. So I was afraid that if I loved myself and if I loved my body, I would stop working on myself and my body. That loving myself would somehow lull me into some kind of a numbness that would keep me from actually continuing to do the work that I needed to do to improve my health. And it is just not the truth. And I can only tell you to have faith in what I'm saying if you're on the front side of this, because it seems antithetical, just like what I said in step 3. Here are some ways that you can start working on this, and some things that's worked for me, some things that I've worked for my clients, some things that I've worked for my friends. Just going to throw some ideas out here for you. Working on your mindset. So that really comes from gratitude, and gratitude being a place of abundance that our mind loves to go to, but that we don't know that our mind loves to go to. And when we can start to function from a grateful mindset, so many other things shift, and they shift more easily. Another idea is to put the scale away until it can simply be a tool for you rather than a form of punishment. This can feel really terrifying. Now, it is important to know if we're totally going off track, or if our body has something going on. A rapid weight gain is something that can give us a clue about that. So I'm not saying never get on the scale. I'm saying stop identifying with the number on the scale as a measure of your self-worth, and start being able to see the scale as a tool to tell you when something is actually wrong. So this can take a long time. I had to put my scale away for 4 years. 4 years before I could start to see it as something that was just simply a way to measure something. Okay. Seeking out experts to help you. Okay, so for those of us that are truly struggling with more disordered eating, and I think there's more of us out there than we realize, seeking out professional help, eating disorder counselors, regular counselors, even naturopaths to help you figure out if you do have some deficiencies that are causing cravings. Any of those can be great options. Also, along with this, seeking supportive community. Do you have some trusted friends that you can talk to about wanting to walk out of diet mentality? Trust me, I think pretty much every woman on the face of the earth wants this on some level. So just, doing the Brene Brown thing, being vulnerable with safe people, that are wanting the same things as you, that are working on the same things as you, can really be effective. Along with that, finding a larger supportive community. So for me, that has come through my network marketing business. The people that are in that business are just the most genuine, truest friends that I have ever met, and they have given me more radical, unconditional love than I have experienced in very few other settings. And so that has allowed me to give myself permission to give that to myself as well. And it has really, really been life-changing. Lastly, along with this step, we're still on step number 4, asking yourself why it is so important for you to lose weight or be a certain size. Whatever is behind there is going to be very revealing. And my friend Corey talks about the threefold why. So why do I want to lose weight? Well, I want to look better for my husband. Well, what's really behind that? Why do you want to look better for him? And, asking yourself a deeper set of questions when it comes to why you want to lose the weight or why you want to be a certain weight. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to be a healthy weight. I definitely support that. I definitely want that for people, but it shouldn't be the end all be all. And if it is, there's something behind that. It's probably a fear or an insecurity or a self-limiting belief of some kind, or even some kind of an emotional deficiency that, if we can address that, makes it way easier to walk away from that diet mentality. Step number 5, to start walking away from diet mentality. This was a big one for me, and this is something that my sister, who is a personal trainer, impressed upon me. And it was to start to see food as fuel and your body as a machine that needs refueling. So women especially, and I know there's guys out there that do this as well, but women are the ones that I see this doing the most. They think that they need to eat as few calories as possible to exist in the world. It's like we're afraid of taking up space. And I want to say that's a bunch of BS, first of all. And then secondly, our nutritional needs are probably a lot higher than we realize. So if you've ever gone out and done an actual calorie counter of your basal metabolic rate, a 1,200 to 1,500 calorie diet is not enough to even support your body's basic functions without you moving, speaking, parenting, walking, going to work, any of those things. And yet we have an entire society of women that are programmed to believe that they have to eat at that point, at that level. So I want to encourage you to look at, yes, your basal metabolic rate, but then also looking at, on top of that, what's your activity level, calculating your caloric needs based on that and letting that be your guide. Okay, so that's part of it. But then also, are you focused on nutrient density instead of just looking at 300 calories of cookies versus 300 calories of almonds? Which one is actually serving your body more? Which one is actually a better form of self-love? Very often it's going to be the more nutrient dense food, which in that case, in that example, is the almonds. Looking at nutrient density of your food. Are you getting enough greens? Are you getting enough fiber? Are you loving yourself enough to put the effort in to looking at, am I really actually getting any vitamins and minerals out of the food that I'm eating? Okay. This can also look like eating enough protein. So one thing that I've learned from Dr. Beth Westy, female hormone expert, good friend of mine, is that we need to be eating as many grams of protein per day as the number of our ideal weight. So if our ideal weight is 140 pounds, if that's where we'd like to be, we need to be eating 140 grams of protein. And most women I know don't get anywhere close to that level of protein. And I'll just tell you guys that when I started to eat more protein and started pacing that throughout my day, I was able to, for lack of a better word, heal my metabolism that I had trashed from so many years of diet mentality and deprivation. This was huge for me. I really feel like it helped my thyroid a lot to start functioning better. Eating enough vitamins and minerals, eating calories to fuel your activity level, working on changing our idea of food as fuel and not reward, and also not punishment. So that's step number 5. And lastly, step number 6 is to start to see movement as a way to express yourself rather than as a form of punishment. So if you're like me, if you've been one of those people that thought you could out exercise poor eating habits, poor drinking habits, if you also just really dislike exercise, I want to completely change the word and talk about movement. And movement, to me, when I tune into what movement means, it is an intuitive thing. It requires me to tune into my body and say, okay, how does my body want or need to move today? So, for example, yesterday I woke up, I was feeling really stiff and sore, which is unusual for me. And I realized it had been about a week since I had done any yoga. Usually I try to do yoga every day. And so, what my body was telling me is that I needed to move through stretching, through fluidity, through breath. But then a few days ago, I just felt like I had pent up energy in my bones. Like I just needed to move my body and I needed to go for a hike or I needed to go for a very brisk walk. And so I did that. And none of that feels like punishment. That all feels like I'm treating my body as my ally. I'm treating my body as something I want to be reverent toward and a steward of rather than punish. And that has helped me so much. So instead of feeling like you have to exercise, and I think when we say exercise to a lot of women, immediately what comes up is being on the treadmill or having to train for a marathon. And if that's your thing, if that's what your body loves to do, that is amazing. And I love it. And keep doing it if that's what your body really wants to do. But if you're a person that is like, I don't want to do any of that stuff, or I don't even know where to start with exercise, I want to encourage you to start to tune into your intuition here and really start to notice what your body's telling you. Some days, my body wants to dance instead of getting on the treadmill. Some days, I want to go hiking rather than go to Zumba. And some days, it's totally the opposite. And what I really want to do is indulge myself and get to that yoga retreat because I know that my body loves to move in that way. So if you start working on these 6 tips, and it is a process, what I think you're going to find over time is that instead of feeling like your body is your enemy, instead of feeling like your body is something you have to fear, like it's a ticking time bomb, instead of feeling like the kitchen is a terrifying place to enter, instead of feeling like you have to fear going out with your friends and having a good time with some drinks or having a great dinner with your partner, that instead you're going to start to have so much reverence for your body and all of the things that it has done to keep you alive over the years, and all of the things that it has put up with that you've punished it with, and all of the negative self-talk that you have thrown at it. Instead, it's going to start shifting for you. And for me, it has turned into just an absolute like heart level appreciation of everything that my body can do in spite of its many challenges. And that to me is radical self-love, and it is the opposite of diet mentality. So now when I walk in the kitchen, and it's taken me years to get to this point, I no longer look around at how can I get away with eating some crap that's not going to serve me. Instead, it's more like I really feel like my body needs some greens right now. I really know that I need some protein, or I just need to sit down and have a good hearty meal, whatever it is, rather than showing up in fear, to be able to show up with an intuitive connection to what my body needs for food and for movement, and to be able to honor it in that way. And what's happened, so interestingly, is that over time, a greater level of measurable health has come from that as well. So I hope this is helpful to you guys. I know this is a very sticky subject for so many people. And again, I want to make the disclaimer that I am not a professional therapist on any level. This is just me sharing my personal journey and experience with this. If you do need help with this, please don't hesitate to get it. There's so much great help out there, and it's more accessible right now than it ever has been for so many of us. So get that help if you need it, get that support if you need it. But I want to challenge you even to take one of these tips and start to implement in your life. See what it does for you. Would love to hear more about it. Go ahead and comment here. Give us a good rating. Likes, subscribes are all appreciated, and we will see you next time.